This is the Enuma Elish, the creation of the solar system, part 2, called Dinosaurs, Sitchin, and Aliens. I do want to talk about how my conclusions were different from Mr. Sitchin's. Although I believe the entire premise to be true, just minor details were a little different than what he claimed, and I'd like to explain that. But first, I'd like to talk about dinosaurs. Ever wonder why there used to be massive creatures roaming the earth, of which we have never seen the like since? According to scientists and researchers, Pangaea was a single landmass consisting of the 7 known continents that existed about 175 million years ago. Actually, they started splitting up 175 million years ago. Currently, the theory is that these continents somehow came together and then split apart again. But the Enuma Elish speaks of a planet, a god called Tiamat, being split apart. He split her up like a flatfish into 2 halves. That's from the Enuma, Tablet 4, line 137. Here we are given a reason for the creation of such a supercontinent. In other words, Pangaea is the result of the collision, the half of Tiamat that eventually became the Earth. There is no logical explanation as to why continents would come together, then split apart again. There is more logic in the idea that Pangaea was an existing landmass from a planet that got split apart, as the Enuma suggests, through a planetary collision. If so, then Sitchin's claims that the Mariana Trench being the scar of such a collision holds even more validity. Now, as we know, the oldest dinosaur fossils discovered are believed to have existed as far back as 240 million years ago. That means they existed before Pangaea split apart, which means they could be remnants of animals that existed on Tiamat. It is no coincidence that Tiamat is a female, as only females give birth to more life. Perhaps it was not an asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. It was the collision, of which so many of these creatures would have been instantly buried and frozen, therefore preserved. Fossils. If the planet was bigger, would life have been bigger? By the way, we're going to have to stop calling it fossil fuels one day, because I don't think it was from dinosaurs. So now let's talk about Zecharia Sitchin and our differences. But first, let's talk about the search for Planet X. Currently, we have not located another planet in our solar system, at least not publicly, so the idea of having another planet is very controversial. Fortunately, the search for Planet X continues. Recently, in 2018, scientists have discovered even more planets on the far fringes of our solar system. One of them has been even called Far Out because it's so far out there. Even in 2013, 2 more dwarf planets have been discovered in our solar system and labeled 2013 FY27 and 2013 FZ27. Perhaps someday we will find our mysterious Planet X. But unlike conspiracy theorists who claim to see Nibiru on a daily basis, usually as sundogs, I do not believe we will see or know of such a planet in our lifetime. Obviously, Zecharia Sitchin covers this topic in great detail, and I do recommend his great body of work, The Earth Chronicles, to anyone who is interested. Speaking of Zecharia Sitchin, I would like to point out the differences between our conclusions regarding the Enuma Elish and how I came to those conclusions. Certainly, it would have been great to meet him when he was alive, to discuss things personally, assuming I even had a chance to do so. But since he's gone from us, I will share these ideas with you. The first thing a fan of Sitchin's work will notice is that the opening words have been directly translated as "when in the heights and the heavens had not been named." It's very poetic. The words are beautiful, but I felt that it didn't quite make sense in a clear manner. When is referring to a time, and in the heights is referring to a place. Thus, long ago, high above felt more appropriate. It's not as poetic or as beautiful, but it's simple. Sitchin had not pointed out that Lahamu and the monster Lahamu have the same name. When I first introduced this idea in social media circles, my friends asked for a source. My answer? The name is the same. Mars was temporarily a moon of Tiamat's. That's what made him a monster. One of the biggest differences is that Sitchin believed that Gaga is Pluto, but all the translations directly state that Gaga is Anshar's minister, and by using Sitchin's own method, we can easily deduce that Anshar is Jupiter, so it must be Jupiter's moon, not Pluto. Anshar opened his mouth, and unto Gaga, his minister, spoke the word. This is from Enuma, Tablet 3, lines 1 and 2. Also, the Enuma directly states that Tiamat had 11 bodies around her, while only directly naming 10 of them. It becomes clear in the story that Gaga is the 11th celestial to become part of her army. Sitchin also claimed that Marduk kissed the god Ea, or Neptune, in his passing, of which the mark is still there. Neptune does have a strange mark on it, but the Enuma clearly states that it was Anshar, or Jupiter, that was kissed. Such a mark also exists on Jupiter, much more prominently than the mark that exists on Neptune. Quote, they entered in before Anshar, they filled, ... They kissed one another in the assembly, ... That's from Tablet 3, lines 131 and 132. He also believed that Kingu, or King as I named him in the retelling of the story, is still our moon. But as the story clearly states, Kingu was dragged off in fetters before Nuttymud, which is another name for Ea, or Neptune. Kingu is not our moon, it is Neptune's main moon. I do not believe it is a mere coincidence. And I actually found this random detail, fetters, from Ernest Alfred Wallace Budge in the book Babylonian Life and History on page 69. And they talk about Marduk and King. Thereupon, Marduk asked the gods in council who was the cause of the rebellion of Tiamat and had made war. And they named Kingu, the husband of Tiamat. And they bound Kingu with fetters and brought him to Ea. Again, that's Neptune. That's a really, really, really good detail, fetters. That means upside down. And Neptune's main moon is in retrograde, spinning the other way. It's not a coincidence. The origins of our moon are found in Tablet 4 of the Enuma. Quote, he, speaking of Marduk, fixed a bolt. He stationed a watchman. It's Tablet 4, line 139. So our moon was one of the moons from Marduk. Now, I do not read cuneiform. I spent many years reading over the various translations available in English and compared them to each other, as well as compared this story to the knowledge we have about our solar system. This helped me see a clearer picture of what was happening in this story. I did use tools like the EPSD, in other words, the Pennsylvania Sumerian Online Dictionary, to help understand the breakdown of some of the words. An example, upsukenaku. The breakdown of that word provides meanings like su means red or sprinkle, ki means place or earth, kin means sickle, ku means to place or to spread. From these words, I inferred the meaning of red to Mars, the red planet, and sprinkle to the asteroid belt. Sickle could refer to where Tiamat was cut in half. Obviously, these are inferences, and I could very well be wrong, or perhaps these are not simple coincidences after all. The biggest question about the Enuma is, how would they know? How would people in the ancient past even have such a story about the events that shaped the creation of the solar system? The answer, you ready? We are not alone. We never were. Zecharia Sitchin's Earth Chronicles certainly is an eye-opener. Many of his claims are easily proven true, things most people had no idea about. Yes, it's true that Moses and his people followed the glory of God, which was mistranslated from the ancient Hebrew word kavod, which does in fact mean heavy thing. In other words, Moses followed a heavy thing that flew above them in the skies. This heavy thing burned the top of the mountain, of which recent evidence has emerged that this mountain is in Saudi Arabia. Nicknamed Jebel Musa. Jebel al-Laz is the name of the mountain, but Jebel Musa means mountain of Moses. Surely we know by now that such a thing could only be caused by technology. It is true that the ancient Hindu stories speak of flying objects in the sky called vimanas. Even the ancient Celtic culture believed that gods would fly in clouds that landed on top of mountains. The Greek god's Hermes helmet is a representation of just that. The wings on his helmet denote flight. All of mythology speaks of a superior race of humanoids, the Homo superius, if you will, the gods. According to the Sumerian Kings list, they have been here since nearly 500,000 years ago. And according to science, humans have only existed for 190,000 years. It is quite interesting that peer-reviewed science and archaeology consistently ignore mythology, especially since that is all we really have concerning our ancient and mysterious past. Modern religions speak of beings that exist in an invisible spiritual realm as angels and demons. But even the Old Testament explains that these gods existed and that they were flesh, blood, and bone, just like us. In fact, they created us in their image. Quote, then God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, This is Genesis 1:26, King James Version. We are physical beings because they are physical beings. They are remembered in the ancient Hebrew culture as Elohim. The Sumerians called them Anunnaki. The Hindu myths called them Nagas. The Norse myths speak of these gods as the Aesir and the Vanir, two different bloodlines that once feuded with each other while they ruled over mankind. As shown on Sumerian tablets, these gods are considerably quite larger than regular humans. As the Bible states, giants once roamed the earth. Understandably, this does leave the question about what modern religions preach to us. Is there a spiritual realm or afterlife? We will have to reconcile that question on our own, and some will not like the answer, but it should also be asked, if a person could live 1,000,000 years, would they even think about afterlife? Probably not. In fact, in mythology, the gods are constantly seeking to prolong their lives, either by water with mysterious properties or even food like magic apples. But where are they? And if they exist, why did they hide from us? It's not a coincidence that parts of Antarctica and certain mountain ranges around the world have no-fly zones. Why? Unfortunately, a regular person will never have the means or method of going to such locations. But if we could, that's where they'd be. And there's also reports, stories, a few mentions, of cities underneath the ocean, specifically the Arabian Sea. Who knows? How would we get there on our own? Maybe the military knows, but we're not alone. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.